夢の国を探す君の名を誰もが心に刻むまで悲しみ乗り越えた微笑みに君を信じていいですか
Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining. My name is Berit and today we will dive further into the plot of Hoshin Engi. This is part 3 of my little series about Hoshin Engi, and to be honest, I'm not yet sure how little or not little this series will be because I just keep talking about it. Again, a fair spoiler warning for basically everything that I'm about to say. We are talking about circa the middle of the plot here, so yeah, this has spoilers for like the complete first half of the series. So we will again start where we left off last time. The armies of Choka and Seiki, they have had their first battle, which the army of Seiki won, but with heavy losses, and among other things, Taikobo lost his left arm, so he's pretty heavily injured. And as he wakes up, he discovers that several people of his group are missing. And the thing is that they have been kidnapped. And they have been kidnapped by a character who I briefly mentioned in the last video, which is Chokomay. He is on the cover of volume 10. This is him. And Chokomay is a kind of special character in more than one way. He's from Kingo Island, and he is as strong as both Daki and Bunchu, so he's one of the strongest there is, basically. And he is a guest at Daki's for a while because he comes there to tell Bunchu that he has now the competence to command basically everyone on Kingo Island to help them defeat Kongrong Mountains. And instead of leaving, like Bunchu tells him to, Chokomay decides to stay for a while as Daki's guest because they are kind of friends. Something that you should know about Chokomay is that he is fabulous in many ways. He likes things to be beautiful, he likes things to be dramatic and theatrical, which is something that is taken up a lot in just about every panel he is in. Which makes him very fun and also kind of creepy sometimes because he's at the same time so strong. And Chokomay has 3 sisters, the Unchu Sisters, who have a super power pay, so a especially strong power pay, which I will talk about a bit later. Chokomay likes to fight for the sake of fighting, and he likes to stage dramatic and elegant fights in fabulous locations. And Chokomay is also the reason why Kingo Island and Kongrong Mountains are rivals, because some time ago he snuck into Kongrong Mountains to challenge the chief of Kongrong Mountains, Genshi Tenson, to a battle, which he then lost very heavily, and the fact that he snuck into Kongrong Mountains, although he wasn't allowed to, and he started a fight against the chief there, that led to the 2 places now not being friends anymore. Chokomay learns about the ongoing battle between the armies of Choka and Seiki, and he decides that this is all not fabulous enough for him, and therefore he decides to kidnap some people from Taikobo's group. And he kidnaps 5 people. He kidnaps King Bu, Supushan, Hiko, Nataku's father, and Dokoson, who is another doshi from Kongrong Mountains. And what he does is that he stages an elegant and dramatic battle on his private passenger liner for Taikobo and his group. Yeah, just to put on a great show, basically. And Chokomay has 5 levels on his passenger liner, and on each level there is an hourglass with sand running down, and in the bottom half of the hourglass there is one of the missing persons. And he times it so that Taikobo and his group have 30 minutes for each level to find the missing person, rescue them from the hourglass, and of course defeat the person who guards the hourglass. So that they kind of have to fight their way through the ship and to the top, where Chokomei awaits with Supushan as his prisoner in the hourglass. So that's kind of the end boss. And just to say this up front, although this is a side quest, it takes up 3 volumes. It is dramatic, it is elegant, it is wild, and it is long, which is why I include it here, because it's also not unimportant to the story actually, although it's a side quest. Taikobo has help from Tenka, Yozen, Sengyoku, who is another doshi from Kongrong Mountains, and also the kind of self-pronounced wife of Dokoson, who is one of the kidnapped people. And he has also help from Nataku, and the battle pretty much has the structure that we know from movies or series, where the group has to fight their way through this building, or in this case this ship, and on each level there is a stronger enemy, and each member of the group has to kind of prove their strength and defeat the enemy so that they can advance further on. So this is kind of this very known structure of how this plot goes. And during this quest, one of the 12 elite sennin called Taiitsu, I kind of don't remember his last name at the moment, but he shows up. He's also the maker and trainer of Nataku, the Paupe human. He shows up and brings Taikobo a new left underarm, because Taikobo lost his original one, kind of. And this again goes to show that they have kind of these Paupe engineers, because Taiitsu made this kind of arm prosthesis that also has special powers, like he can press on something on the hand and then it will punch, and he can use this hand kind of like, yeah, kind of like a machine. I won't go into the details for the battle, but eventually, as you might have guessed, Taikobo reaches the top. I think he's like the last one in the group, because everyone else fights earlier, and so he's the last one left, and he reaches the top to fight Chokomei himself. But he first summons his 3 sisters to fight Taikobo, and yeah. What is interesting about the sisters is, as I've said, that they have a super paupe, which is a kind of large scissor, which 2 of the sisters together can use. And this also goes to show how strong this paupe is, because none of the 3 sisters can use it by herself. They have to be 2 people to be able to use it, because it's so powerful. And this big scissor thing is the second strongest paupe there is, only second to Shinkoyo's ice cream cone. I mean, Thunder Whip. What these scissors do is that they release 2 dragons, a black and a white one, who then kind of chase around the enemy until they get him and devour him. But Taikobo manages to dodge the attacks, which eventually gets Chokomei to join the battle himself. And he is stronger than his sisters, and he can also use these scissors, this super paupe, alone, and he releases a more advanced version of these dragons that chase Taikobo. And this version is called the rainbow version. Again, you see Chokomei is very fabulous. So to protect himself and Supushan, who by the way has been turned into a rock during the fight, Taikobo has to use more power against these dragons, and eventually his paupe actually breaks and both he and Supushan die. So there is actually a new manga starting midway through chapter 12, because our hero is dead now. And so yeah, well, thanks for watching, bye! Yeah, okay, new manga. Football story. Looks very fun. Okay, very interesting, very interesting. Oh, but no, actually actually, after a few pages of the football manga, we return to Hoshin Engi. Who would have thought? Bukichi, who is a kind of self-pronounced disciple of Taikobo, and I haven't mentioned him yet, but he's been with the group for a while now. He's very loyal and devoted to Taikobo, and he is so frustrated by the fact that Taikobo is apparently dead that he starts to attack Chokomay and he beats him up because he doesn't want to accept that he killed Taikobo. And all of a sudden a kind of strange light starts to glow where Taikobo and Suppu have been killed. And we now find out what the little ball that Suppu-chan is carrying around the whole time, what this little ball is actually for. And it turns out that this is a resurrection ball. Only 2 of those balls exist, and they were created by the huge Paopei which are in the center of Kingo Island and Kongrong Mountains. And when the person holding the ball gets into life-threatening danger, the ball explodes and releases so much energy that it restores the person's body to maximum health. And for Suppu-chan, he is not only alive again, but he actually is transformed into his battle form, which we kind of didn't know he had before. I mean, the chief of Kongrong kind of knew, but the readers didn't. So Suppu-chan is now ready to fight and very, very, very strong. And he also tells Bukichi that the resurrection ball hasn't only affected Suppu-chan, but it actually also got Taikobo back to the living. But Taikobo is buried under rocks that have exploded as he and Suppu originally died, so Bukichi has to go to kind of dig him out from the rocks. And Suppu is now also strong enough so that he can just fly around and eat the rainbow dragons. Oops! And this forces Chokomei to actually reveal his true form because Chokomei is a yokai sennin. And Chokomei's true form is of course as fabulous as he is. It is a lily, a giant big ass lily. Yosen tries to kill Chokomei / the big ass lily by transforming into several people and using their weapons to strike at Chokomei, and he almost makes it, but that actually leads to Chokomei spawning, so he kind of turns into a forest actually. And while Yosen tries to kill Chokomei and Chokomei spawns into a forest, Bukichi manages to wake up Taikobo, but Taikobo kind of needs 5 minutes to cope with this whole having died and being alive again thing, you know, kind of the usual Monday stuff, I guess. He eventually kind of recovers and takes Suppu, and they rise up into the air, all the way into the mesosphere actually, so we're talking pretty high in the air. And there Taikobo gathers a storm with his Dashinben from the extremely cold air, which he then shoots down on Chokomei, because a lot of plants actually die from the shock of extremely cold air, which is kind of what he wants to do with Chokomei now. And what can I say? It works. Chokomei dies and his soul is fabulously, of course, sealed in the Hoshindai. But of course, although the group now defeated their strongest enemy yet, this also has pretty heavy repercussions for the story, which I will talk about in the next video. I wanted to keep this short because this is a side plot and because I feel that this is at the same time a video about the fabulousness that is Chokomei. And as you can see, the story of Hoshin Engi continues to be pretty wild. And it gets more and more complicated because we now have a lot of characters with a lot of backstory, which actually is very important to understand what's happening. So you have to keep a lot of stuff in mind. And we also have some characters that kind of appear and disappear again and then they reappear. and you kind of have to not forget who they were. And also, apart from the fact that we have so many characters and that I kind of want to recap every time we meet a character again who has appeared before, apart from that, you may have gathered that also all the fights kind of escalate in all possible ways. I've tried to keep this short, but that also kind of sometimes make it a bit difficult to explain what happens, or at least I feel that this makes it kind of difficult to explain because all the characters are very unique and then they do all this very crazy stuff and it's very strange. So I think the story is actually pretty complicated, and making these videos also helps me to remember what happens and to kind of keep track of the plot. But so far I'm still absolutely enjoying reading it. It's super funny, which I will also talk more about in another video, but it's also super dramatic sometimes. And I also love the fights because they are very varied and they're very crazy, and some of the people and Paupe and also kind of battle strategies that I use are also super hilarious, which also makes it a lot of fun to read. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this further exploration of the plot of Hoshin Engi and also the fabulousness that is Chokomei still. As I said, this is a video 100% about a side quest, but we will return to the main plot next time. I hope you enjoyed this little rambling about Chokomei and about Hoshin Engi, and maybe I'll see you in the next video. Bye!